So there's two camps of businesses at this time of the year. There are those that are extremely busy, it's crazy, it's hectic, and there are those that have nothing going on at all. So as a salesperson, knowing this, one of the best things you can do if you're trying to get a meeting with them is just call it out. You know, as you begin to like build out your the calendar for the year, right, and what you're gonna try and accomplish, I think one of the big things that salespeople and entrepreneurs fail to understand is that the value of momentum and of success begetting success begetting success. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, man. So entrepreneurs and salespeople tend to, when they start out, they're on the top. They get a blank calendar. It's completely blank. There's nothing in it, and so it leaves them with only one activity, right? And interestingly enough, like a lot of salespeople, they don't take actions. And we've talked about this in the past, but you could have the greatest idea in the world, but if you don't take action, if you don't go out there and test the market, if you don't go fast and break, you're never going to understand if the market really is receptive to what you're trying to sell. But once you've identified that that's the case, what we tend to do is we tend to, as humans, right, we tend to move towards whatever work we enjoy the most. Salespeople need two things, right? The first thing they need is a message. They need an audience. Right? You got to have an audience. And then once you have an audience, you need a compelling message that moves people forward. And so the gaining audience part, that's the part that most salespeople avoid at all costs. And so, as you begin the year, you look at a blank calendar, right? It's one of the most frustrating things that you ever have as a salesperson, because it basically says to you, there's only one thing that you can do, which is create a ton of activity to fill that calendar up with appointments. And unfortunately, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just throw themselves into it, and once the calendar is full, what do? They execute against all those appointments, and they stop that momentum, that prospecting momentum. They don't have enough time set aside week in and week out to do the most important tasks of their job. That prospecting, that generating activity, that biz dev, right? That work is different than meeting with the clients. The meeting with the clients part's fun, and so to get the momentum going and to keep it going requires discipline, and it requires a commitment in your calendar. Without that discipline, particularly if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're a performance-based salesperson where you don't get paid a salary, you don't get paid, even if it's like a pittance, right? It's not significant enough where it's going to sustain your quality of life. You potentially, if you don't have a very rigid commitment to the activity creation, what you end up doing is you end up going on this roller coaster ride, right? You start here, you've got nothing going on, you work, right? You finally have some meetings, and you get this big payoff. And and what do when we get paid off? We go out and we have a bunch of cocktails, we spend a bunch of money, and then all of a sudden we wake up and we're broke. We're like back to square one again. And so you've got, you only have one thing to do, which is work, and you build up to this place, and then, the same thing. Like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. The definition of success is doing the same thing over and over to get the desired result. And so rather than do this insane roller coaster thing, if you define the reality that you want to have, and you understand what your number is, and you know that number, what you can do is you can build a model that's going to give you consistent growth, right? Where you'll have incremental success on top of incremental success on top of incremental success. The real challenge for, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs that we talked in the past is that you can never expect somebody to share in your ambition, or to appreciate the pain and the suffering you're willing to go through for the reward that you want. And I think a lot of times, that comes down to money, right? And family members, they don't like this roller coaster. And so you may be able to tolerate it, and hopefully eventually you'll get out of that just because of referrals and all those other types of things that come with there's an inverse relationship between tenure and failure in sales, and because the longer you're there, the more stability you're going to gain, but your loved ones don't have that same kind of appetite, and really you shouldn't either. You do not need to suffer through sales. right? It should be something that's very controllable. And you know, a lot of people say, "Oh, I could never go straight commission sales. There's too much risk in it." Man, I think there's too much risk when you have, you know, a defined salary, right, where your success is predicated on somebody else's belief in your economic viability, where you got to go in annually and hope that you're going to get a raise, right? That's just not the world I want to live in. And the good news is, if you want to make more money and you're in a performance-based situation, all you got to do is work harder, become more efficient or more effective. That's it. Right? And so when you look on that calendar, when you're setting up for this year, make sure that you're using every moment to do it. And you know, this time of the year is a perfect example. It's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, right? A lot of salespeople in the month of December will shut down. Right? They'll shut down around Thanksgiving. They'll shut down between the time between Christmas and New Year's. They'll believe a story that nobody's working. Like, they'll actually convince themselves that business owners aren't working. They'll convince themselves that nobody's setting appointments, that you can't meet with anybody. I will tell you that some of the greatest success I had happened between the period between Christmas and New Year's. I would call clients, I would call businesses, I would call prospects, I'd call people that I was chasing all year long, and I would say to them, "Hey, John, you know, how are you, man? Hate to bother you. I know this time of year can be crazy for you, or it's absolutely dead. It's one or the other, right?" Every business that I've ever come across between Christmas and New Year's is either crazy, right, tying up the end of the year, or it's absolutely a ghost town. Business owners are still there. They're still opening the door. Even if none of the employees are there, the business owner's still there. If they're extremely busy because they're a retail business, what you got to understand is going into it, hey, I'm not calling to set an appointment now, but I do want to set an appointment as soon as it quiets down. So you ask that guy, "Hey, John, you know, which camp do you fit in? Are you really, really busy right now, or is it dead?" And if they're really busy, great. Let's set something in the second week of January. You have plenty of time for it to settle, and we'll get the year started off right. How's the morning or afternoon, right? Give them an optional close, get them committed. And the same holds true if they say, "My business is dead." Well, good news, so is mine. How about the 26th at 2 o'clock? I'll bring you some Christmas cookies. Use this period of time and capitalize on what you know business owners are going through. They're either busy or they're dead. Capitalize either way.